Earthbound travelers, welcome to today's episode of Cast Guidance. I'm Tier the DM, the world's okayest DM, and with me today I have Raph the Mad.
Greetings, gamers!
Locke is on his way to Gulf Wars in the SCA, so fuck you, Locke. I hope you have fun. Before we get started, just a couple of quick announcements. First and foremost, we are for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Secondly, we are in no way, shape, form affiliated or associated with any TTRPG producers, creators, or manufacturers. We are just questionable individuals coming together to give our questionable opinions. And finally, we do not encourage the use of vaping or nicotine products such as cigarettes. We want you to be happy and healthy, and just because we do it doesn't mean you should. Also want to give a shout out to Patrick Taylor, our very own Peculiar Patrick, for creating the theme song that smacks for the show.
Yes, it's very hummable and highly entertaining.
It is. I told him when he asked me about it, I said, I want 70s game show music, and so he came through. Also, just shout out to our affiliates. Without the partners in this endeavor, if you need a good high octane kick to help get you through, head over to Phineas Coffee, top tier coffee for gamers. You can get there by going to bit.ly/WOTD Phineas. That's bit.ly/WOTD PHINEAS. And our other affiliate in this is NordVPN. You want privacy, you want security without sacrificing speed. Check out NordVPN. Also, you can change your country of origin and watch different shit on Netflix. So go check them out. Head over to www.willofthedice.com and click on their logo. That way they know that we sent you.
Yes, please do so. It helps support this channel. Speaking of supporting this channel, let's keep real, friends. Times are dark. It's snowing outside. It's horrible. But what you can do to relieve that stress, that feel of dread, is go to patreon.com. Search up Will of the Dice. Hit subscribe. Help support us in our time of depression and fighting with the snows. We could really use your support. Seriously, folks, it does help us out. All proceeds that shall come to help support the back end side of our operation here to help keep this thing running. If you do support us, you do subscribe, you get access to it after the rolls, where we talk about the fuckery, the wonderful things Tier has done to our party in this campaign. You get access to interviews with the players outside of the world. What does Raph do in his off time? No one wants to know. And you also get access to audio dramas. Chiami has an audio drama out there on Patreon now. What was Chiami's life like? It'd be cool. Have to log in and subscribe to find out. So yes, please get in there, help support us. It really does help support this channel.
And that brings us to our third partner in this endeavor, Red Panda Dice and Delights. They have dice, sexy dice. You can find them at redpandadice.com. But for the next 17 individuals that subscribe to Patreon, you're going to get a 55 millimeter D20. These things are huge. They are chunky. They are smexy as hell. So yeah, head over to patreon.com/WOT dice. WOT dice.
Yes,
right.
they're guaranteed to roll.
Yes, they will roll. And for a mere $49.95, I will bless your dice so they roll well.
Wait a second. I've seen your dice roll, sir.
Hey, it doesn't work for me, but I can bless other people's dice.
Speaking of rolling dice, today's topic.
Today's topic is DMCraft. Creating items, mechanics, homebrewing things. We're going to be a little bit all over the board because neither one of us are really prepared because it's been a shit week.
Yes.
But if you have questions, now's the time to start asking them to help us.
And the reason I kind of proposed this topic is I put myself on a 2-week challenge, i.e., my ADHD got a hold of me and said, "Hey, you got to do this thing to fill in for a spare game night." So I'm crafting a brand new RPG/hybrid tabletop board game out of the back of my brain. And yeah, game design decisions and how they affect the game and what does that mean and all the various things you got to consider when you make something. So it led me to ask here. So you created Arabane's Patience for Sins of Blood.
Yes, I did.
What, I guess the design decisions behind that, as you think about how did that, what were you thinking about when you put that together?
So when I was thinking about Arabane's Patience, I was thinking about the undertow of the storyline and the things I knew that the players didn't know. And there's been a lot come out. I'm going to throw some spoilers out here. So if you're not up to date, cover your ears. Spoilers ahead, me hearties. So this whole time, the prophecies that they've been chasing is bullshit. It was put out by Bianca to try to get 6 stones of power, the box of transmutation, and the Evernight, a powerful weapon that was left over from the time of the ones that came before. The wise ones of the age of long ago, when some of this technology was unearthed previously, decided that these stones needed to be kept safe in case the weapon was needed to fight a great evil, but also needed to be able to destroy the trigger, which is the stones. So His Majesty King Arabane forged Arabane's Patience, the blade that can destroy the stones. He put one of the stones in the handle of the blade, concealed within the handle. The stone is dormant right now. The power of Arabane's Patience, the cold and stuff, comes from the elven infusion of magic on the blade to help give it enough power to destroy a stone, or all of the stones, for that matter. So that's what I was thinking when I created the blade.
Okay.
And then it was fortuitous that one of the party members was playing a fighter that used a 2-handed weapon so that, it could fall within their grasp.
Okay. I guess not dig into the mechanics. That's a very good RP lore heavy explanation of the blade. But as a player who wields that sword, I don't think I've discovered all of its abilities yet. But you've added a few extra abilities to it, and how do you balance that out with what else is going on? What you gave it Cone of Cold once a day. You gave it the Time Turner once a day. On top of just being a +2 badass.
Yeah, it's a great sword +2. It has it can reverse the flow, which the user can reroll 1 or force an enemy's roll to be rolled once per day. Which that wording is very important. That should not have worked with Patrick's roll. Y'all took advantage of me because I was sick. It also gets Cone of Cold once per day. So it has 2 very powerful, because Cone of Cold does some damage.
Yeah, it does.
It has some powerful abilities, but they're only once per day. And the mechanic behind it is that given the level that you all are at, what went into the thinking of this, the level when it would be obtained and the levels that you would be playing to, is this weapon would scale with Sarek. As Sarek got up in levels, the passive abilities wouldn't be considered as powerful because the spellcasters would be stronger, but would still have the ability to lend help to the party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as a player, I've been using those rather sparingly. I only bring them out in dire need or when I think I could pull them off. From mechanics-wise, the +2 has been the biggest biggest bonus of that thing because it really ups my ability to just hit things and add the extra damage. And then now that we're swinging, into 2 and 3 attacks a turn, that from that aspect, that's it's kept Sarek in the game.
Well, and that's, I mean, the primary nature of the weapon is it's a sword.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a sword wielded by a powerful king. That's why it's a +2. Arabane was a very powerful fighter, so it's meant to be used for what its purpose is.
Mm-hmm. I guess this part goes back a bit to the having played in a Pathfinder 3.5 and the older editions. Fifth edition did a really big power squeeze on its numbers. In the old edition, a +2 is it's an average sword. You're not talking high end magic. +2 in 5th edition is actually kind of a big deal because a +3 is an artifact weapon.
Yeah.
So it's just sometimes getting your mind wrapped around the squish numbers kind of gets a little warped because you're thinking only +2, but +2 actually means a pretty decent amount of damage and decent additionals to hit considering all the rest of the number of squishes. So, yeah, that was one thing I was kind of curious. You've done a lot of homebrew stuff in some of this.
I do mostly homebrew, mostly monsters, world, everything is mostly homebrew.
Yeah, I enjoy some of your monsters, especially the chaos troll you built for us to fight outside Airbane's crypt. That was an entertaining fight. So
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Okay. Yes, chat, please pipe up, ask questions. Give us descriptions, thoughts, comments. We like working with our chat people.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to game design, because I'm heavy in the game design numbers for my system. Got a solid system built, I think. It's now the portion of the process where you actually spend time inputting data, building items, things, creatures, and that takes time. Let's see.
So the Dungeoneers, it's a little both. We're a little deranged, we're a little desperate, but we're good people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 questions. Says that personally, when making a magic item, they'd rather give a weapon flaming, cold, or acid rather than a mechanical +1 and homebrew more stat squishing if necessary. I understand that. I look at what the item was initially created for. If I'm creating an item for a player for the first time, like it is being created for a playing character, then I may go that route as well. But like with Arabane's Patience, this was a weapon wielded by a famous elven king who was one of the greatest fighters in the Emerald Forest, or the Kingdom of Emerald, before it became the Swamp of Morning Solace and they were turned into animals. So it seemed fitting to make it a +2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and interesting stats. Yeah, I'm thinking back to some of the homebrew stuff I've got in my campaign that I just finished up. We had the recurrence of a older artifact from a previous campaign, which I tortured the same player with twice, which was absolutely delightful on my part. But back in the days of 2nd edition, when I started out my world, there was a campaign, and they came across. They were sent in search of an artifact hammer to help destroy a lich. Well, they fought their way through a dragon and into an abandoned keep. They could not find this hammer anywhere. Well, the player who was a fighter decided, I'm going to check out. Maybe there's something in the forge room in the smithy to see if I can fix on my armor or something. I said, yeah, there's kind of an old looking hammer, forger hammer sitting over there on one of the smithy tools. You could probably work with that. And before he thought about it, he said, yeah, I pick it up. And I said, oh, when you pick it up, he's like, oh no. I watched the look of dread on his face. Because on the second edition rules, they had intelligent artifact weapons.
Yes.
And this one had an intelligence. And he was let's just say, less than good alignment person. And this was a very lawful good weapon. So he and the hammer had several arguments. He often dreamed of fuzzy bunnies and beautiful set calming forest scenes. But it worked out because they need him to kill the Lich. The hammer very much did not like undead. But it was fun. I'm like, cool, that's a good one-off artifact for them to play with. It allowed me to kind of mess with the player a bit because, you get to argue with an artifact hammer that wouldn't let him do evil things. And he couldn't get rid of it. And by the time, at the end of the campaign, when he handed off the hammer to the priestly order that sent him after it, they didn't touch it. They said, here, put it in this box. We don't want to touch it either. It was fun. Cool. Flash forward a decade and a half or more later, and we're in my new campaign. Same world, about 700 years later. I'm like, and they're dealing with undead. I'm like, hey, I've got this old hammer sitting around as an artifact. And the same players in this campaign. Oh, this could be entertaining. But how story-wise do I bring this in and make it 1A, 5th edition, so it's got a different set of powers, rules, and stats. And stat-wise, I end up making, because it's a forging hammer, a light hammer, +3, not a problem. And then I homebrewed the plus 1d20 against undead. It hits undead hard. And then I added the other bit. And this is where I started building on the lore. And this is how artifacts, yes, dear. Yeah, Adacia says the fluffy Benny hammer. She was there. She saw it. She giggled. But this is how I added to the lore of the hammer is it also has the ability to destroy artifacts.
Nice.
Because they were running across some evil artifacts. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And then it built the lore of the hammer is called the light hammer of unmaking. So its design was to build and destroy artifacts. And it talks about some of the lore as it talking to the player of how it's made several artifacts in its time in the before times, and they're still out in the world. And it's still around waiting to either awaken them or destroy them should he needs to put them down. But yeah, it was a fun way to add something different to the campaign. And stat-wise, a +2 wasn't feeling too bad. No, Chris, a +3 wasn't feeling too bad in that campaign because at level 10, it gave a pretty good boost, but I could then throw bigger creatures at it like, Death Knights and Liches.
Yeah, I'm disappointed with how they nerfed the Death Knights in 5e.
Yeah.
I just want to say off topic, guys, I'm fidgety as hell. And I'm going to be making faces. The pain management doctor is changing around my medicine, and they've actually removed some of it that I have to be off of for 30 days before they put me on the new. And so, yeah, big time suck.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's one of the lore decisions and stat books. And when I'm building the second set of stats for 5th ed, it came down to how do I make something that works that isn't too overpowered, but still gives that player a boost for you've got an artifact. It needs to feel like an artifact versus a standard magic weapon.
Right.
And yeah, and I think homebrew is some of the way you kind of do that because there's only so many hands of Vecna you can throw around before people get kind of tired of them.
Well, you're talking about it does, plus 1d20 against undead. When I was running the Sword of Hope campaign, one of the characters was kidnapped by a fiend and tormented for a while, to the point that whenever their character came in contact with demons, they went and had to roll to see if they went into a rage. If they went into a rage, they couldn't use their magic, but their damage became 1d20 against demons versus their normal damage. And it sounds powerful, but when you look at the stat blocks of some of the fiends, it balanced out and still made for some very tense, interesting fights.
Yeah, because you can drop some of the bigger creatures on them and not feel so bad but when you do so. And it does lead to some more interesting fights. So, all right, yes, chat, please pipe up. I know 2 Questions was working on something. I'm waiting for him to pipe up on that. As we were talking last night about game design at our after meeting dinner, he's working on a rather interesting game system where you don't play characters, you play departments in a city. And
that does sound interesting.
That sounds fun. How do you run a department in a city, and how do you influence what's going on in the city? That could be entertaining. I'm curious to see how if he's got anything he wants to share about it in chat when he comes back. But yeah, I'd want to be the sanitation department because you're in charge of getting rid of everyone's trash. And for an extra fee, we can make sure no one ever finds it again.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I guess when you come up with a homebrew mechanic or a magic item, how much is based in the moment and how much is pre-planned?
A lot of what I do is in the moment. Like with items are pre-planned. But the mechanics that I'll come up with for doing things, a lot of that's in the moment, what sounds right. And then I'll just document it so that we can have it going forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I tend to pre-plan my items. Rulings. Some of them happen on the fly. If we homebrew hey, we can homebrew jump rules today.
We've been working on that.
Ooh, we could do this when Locke's not here, so we can make you feel bad for not being here.
I have been working on the jump spell. And let me pull it up so I can get the exact wording.
Mm-hmm. To the interwebs, where our research is everything.
Yeah, to the Googles. The creature's jump distance is tripled until the spell ends.
Mm-hmm.
There is a calculator out there that you can use to determine the distance a character can jump.
Mm-hmm.
It's called flexlabs.com/5e jump. That's FLEXLABS.com/5EJUMP. I believe from now on with the jump spell, unless they change something in 1D&D, and I decide to incorporate that, I'm going to allow it to calculate the distance. You get 3 times that in a single jump. None of this, you can go up to your movement and that's it. Because that doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Sarek needs to be playing basketball. Because according to that FlexLab jump calculator, he can grab something 18.1 feet off the ground with a running start.
How far can he fly horizontally?
20 feet.
So with the jump spell, he could go 60 feet.
Oof.
That's how I'm going to start doing it.
Oh, interesting. They did. They actually like this calculator. Gives you with the running start, without a running start, if there are obstacles in the way. I can't clear. He can't clear obstacles that are taller than 5 feet. Oh,
Yeah, I suggest I'm gonna drop the link in chat.
yeah, it's interesting. In all circumstances, it does list the ruling from, of course, fifth ed. You cannot jump farther than your remaining movement. You might need to dash to cover long distances. I can't remember our discussions of the profane jump rule, whether we talked about having to take or you have to take 2 actions to finish your jump, which was kind of
Yeah, that's just so. Yeah, with the jump spell, you can triple whatever your horizontal jump is, or your vertical jump if you're just jumping straight up. But you can't take a dash action with it, so you can't add an extra to it. It's just triple of what your jump would be.
cool. Yes, 2 questions now that you're back. I mentioned your new game, so if you want to poke into chat about it, we're kind of curious some of the thoughts behind how you run a city. But yeah, right now we're talking about jump spell. That I like this calculator. Although that means everyone has to load it if we got to jump. Speaking of, while I'm thinking about it, I shall add it to my favorites now for later. Yes, we put
Your
2
question
questions on.
says now that you put them on the spot.
It's good for him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, some of those. Well, that comes back to the top level of why do we homebrew things? Because we don't like the rules they put out in the regular rule set.
Look, it is no secret that me and Jeremy Crawford do not see eye to eye on a lot of things. And that's one of the reasons that I homebrew shit.
Uh-huh. Although, new homebrew rule, double counterspell spells. That's one I think I may put in. One of the old spells I enjoyed was Chain Contingency. That was a lovely, lovely NPC spell for causing all sorts of chaos, but it is not in the current rule set, and I want it back. For those who don't know, 2nd and 3rd edition, Chain Contingency allows you to contingency chain 3 spells together tied to an event or a trigger. You do have contingency, which allows you to do 1. 3 is much more cinematic and entertaining. All right. 2 questions.
2 questions. Go ahead.
Yep. You run a faction rather than running a character, kind of like Legacy, Life Among the Ruins. Individual characters are transient. The real character is the faction. Instead of playing General What's-His-Name, you play the army. And no OneDrive, I don't want to talk about that. Let's see. So that's interesting. He's working on the city rules right now, and the last game was very touch and go. He's waiting to make a bit more crunchy rules, but not so much as Fighter campaign. However, it's too much accounting in dragons. Yes, and that's an interesting comment, because that kind of segued into a conversation we were having with someone else last night about rule sets. How crunchy do you need to get? Another friend of mine, he's got a game system for running city campaigns that's like 300 typed out pages. I'm going, cool. That's a lot of rules. Well, that's a lot of minutia.
I think it can be simplified. Ren Matley, who is the voice of Nan and Kalira, has created a game called Shots and Daggers. And the synopsis of this is that your characters are drunk and in the middle of an adventure while sobering over a period of time. The mechanics are simple and to the point. It's like 3-page PDF that includes what few spells and stuff. It is a completely created system.
Mm-hmm.
It is brilliant. It's not meant to be serious. It's meant to be fun and to have a laugh. And watching the playtest with Locke and Christina was absolutely fucking hilarious. Speaking of Christina, I see that she's in chat. Like Latina C 2002. What's up?
Yes, and pipe up about that. Yeah. Ooh. Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out. I was kind of hoping she'd be around for some of these questions because I think I'd be interested in poking her brain about what does game design decisions did she make? Because 3 pages versus 300 pages. And
yeah, unfortunately, she works during the day, so we'll have to get with her and get a time scheduled.
Mm-hmm. But I guess I'm seeing a trend in game designs and games versus in this decade versus past decades, where past decades you pulled out a tome that you could bludgeon someone to death with, versus now a lot of games are going to super streamlined rule sets.
And the reason for that is that most TTRPG companies are trying to go mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
With the explosion of shows like The Big Bang Theory and the actual live streams like Critical Role and stuff, D&D has gotten a lot more mainstream. That's why you're seeing the rule compression and streamlining in one D&D while they're changing classes and magic tables, and they're trying to make it to where it's easier for newer players that are not hardcore geek number crunchers like most of us are. And so you see a lot of these new systems coming out that are streamlined for mainstream. And, honestly, I mean, the purpose of it's to have fun. You don't need to memorize 6 tomes that, you could build a coffee table out of. When you think of like the 1-page RPGs like Honey Heist. Honey Heist is simple. You're going to HoneyCon, you're trying to steal honey, you're fucking bears. That is the simple, that's Honey Heist. But it's so much fun.
First, I'm like, how dare you call me out like that? Considering
You're welcome.
I play classic BattleTech or accountants with robots. But yeah, the streamlined. Well, yeah. Speaking of BattleTech, they put out their own version recently called Alpha Strike, which is a streamlined, quicker rule set for new players to get in and play quicker games. And that's what it is. I think they're trying to cut back on digging into tomes and more about playing the game.
And I think the other thing too is that a lot of their target audience are older. There are age groups, and they know we don't have a lot of time to sit down and read new books and everything. Lolly brings up a good point that these quick games are great, that you can just be like, hey, let's play this. Instead of playing charades at game night, you whip out a 1-page RPG like Honey Heist, and everybody has fun. So it's a wide spectrum,
Yeah. And I think 2 questions kind of hit it on the head. Required reading is a cost on your players. How much, as you said, how much time is it going to cost me to get into this game? How much time are we going to spend learning rule sets before we actually get around to playing?
When I started Sins of Blood and Bloodlines, I gave my players, you were one of them, 6 paragraphs to update them on what was going on with the world. When I initially wrote it out, it was 32 pages in Word. I had to trim it down to 6 paragraphs because I knew nobody was going to read 32 pages in Word over what's going on in Runa's Kesha.
I would, but I'm a cracked out person, am not part of the norm. But yeah, and I guess this comes down to, it's kind of hits a different tangent of how to get people into your game. if you drop down the tome of evil that that's 50 pounds and say, hey, you got to read this before you play this game, no one's going to jump in. So you need to, I guess, companies and game designers have to find a way to hook the player, and they can't do it by giant rule sets anymore.
No, they can't.
And I'm finding that as I work in the actual tabletop game community. A lot of these games here, hey, let's sit down and play. Here's a quick learner game. You got your miniatures, I got mine. Here's the quick rules. You roll some dice, you can move like this. Let's go. And you have to get people in and playing in under 5 minutes, or you've lost them. And yeah, that's just the nature of it is. Consider there's so much competition for players' times, money, and attention.
And here's the thing, like, this is going to be probably considered sacrilege by some, and they're going to want to form an angry mob and lynch me, but I don't care. When I have someone new to D&D that wants to learn to play, I don't tell them to read the player's handbook. I sit down and ask them, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? And then I align what they want to be with what's in the player's handbook. I give them the basic rules for creating their character, for rolling their stats, explaining what their stats do, and I get them playing. Then I will give them a player's handbook once I know that they're interested, and be like, here, read this and understand. But you can't hand somebody a player's handbook and expect them to get hyped about it.
No, not these days. There's too much out there. That's an interesting one. Index Card RPG does this fairly well. It starts really simple, but you can tack on rules as you go. That sounds like Flux, the RPG game.
Yeah, it does.
That could be interesting.
I'm gonna have to. I'm making a note in my notebook. Index RPG.
Suddenly, everyone can fly. What? But you're all blind. Oh, that's gonna end poorly.
And it's funny because I'm actually looking at if the storyline goes to an apocalyptic scenario, going away from D&D.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
Yeah, there's a system called Phase, and it's made of apocalyptic events in whatever setting, and your characters carry over some of their memories, some of their powers, but are in a new setting. The rules are not that heavy. I picked it up off of Drive-Thru RPG for like $5.
Mm-hmm.
Go check it out. It calls to me as someone who wants to see a different setting and be able to play cowboys, Indians, and warlocks, or Native Americans, excuse me. Or samurai, ninja, and blade dancers,
Yeah, that could be fun too. Well, it reminds me of the old RPG called Dream Park, where you played essentially Westworld. You played in a VR world built for whatever scenarios you played, and then you played outside the park as well. So that was kind of an interesting system where you had to kind of balance what's going on in the VR world, what's going on outside the world.
Hold on, I've got to get the name so that I get it right for those asking.
Yep, he's responding to the chat. Phase shift. Yeah. Flux that could be fun. While you're doing that, I guess besides taking more questions from chat. I'm trying to think what as we look at designing things and playing homebrew rules, what's one of the biggest rules you would change if you could inside 5th Ed right now?
I would get rid of death saving throws.
Ooh.
The Flux. It's called The Flux. It's by John Wick Presents Publishers. It's on Drive-Thru RPG, and it's $2.09 right now.
Cool.
I'll even drop the link.
Ooh, that's a bold choice you just made there, Tier.
I would get rid of, I'm being honest. If there was one thing that I would want to see gone, it's death saving throws.
I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm just running slowly through my hamster wheel mind the ramifications of what that would mean for the system and for the game.
I wouldn't replace it with anything. You hit 0 hit points, you're dead. I'm going to expound on this.
Yep.
So when we first started Cast Guidance, I actually praised death saving throws, as it gave characters a chance not to die. The problem is there are so many ways to not only keep someone from dying, but to bring someone back from the dead in the game, that death has no real consequence or fear.
Mm-hmm.
I had to, if you go and watch Bloodlines Revelations, I had to set up a scenario with a monk that had quivering palm and a magic user that had soul cage to keep a character from being revivified in the middle of combat.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you. That's been kind of one of my, as a games master, that's one of my kind of annoyances with 5th Ed, is it's too easy to come back from the dead. As a player, I'm like, oh, good. Unless death's good. But yeah, it does change the system. I'm not so sure total destruction of the death saving throws, but they've got to change the mechanic somehow.
They got to. I'm not saying that my way is better.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I remember back in 2nd Ed.
Oh, yeah.
I would say, first off, as you get higher in levels, it gets harder to die.
Yes.
Find ways to increase hit points. Find ways to increase armor class. Things of that nature. Yeah, I mean, because they are squishy characters. Like sorcerers go down at the drop of a hat.
Lolly. But anyways, yeah, that's an interesting thing though, especially with this. We go back to game design, especially the stat squish they did. Getting a higher AC. Okay, it doesn't actually give you that much more protection in some ways when you start looking at actual numbers. And higher hit points helps, but when my AC tops out at most 22, 23, unless I really do something multi-class and stupid. And then, a level 5 fighter has a +7, +8 to hit.
Yeah. And 2 questions says, or let the player say that they lose an arm or something rather than dying. I would totally be down for that.
Mm-hmm.
If I was getting rid of death saves. And in 5e, honestly, in 5e, if you look in the DMG, there are alternative rules for losing limbs and having permanent damage or long-term damage from combat.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't go into the vein of when you hit 0. And that's the thing about it, is that if nothing else, make it 1 death save. Or, you get 1 and done. If you make it, good. If not, sorry. Just, I mean...
Or make it so you can't be popped up in the middle of combat. Hey, you made your death saving throw. You're not going to die. You stabilize, but you can't be brought back for the rest of this combat. You're out. Your body's done. You're still unconscious. How much magic throughout you need a chance to recover. You're out of the fight.
Yeah. Make it so that when they're making death saving throws, a cure wounds doesn't bring them back up.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's just...
Okay, cool. Cure wounds just stabilize them, but they're still out for the fight. They can't come back.
Yeah. and I can feel the daggers coming. But it's if there is no mortality or fear of mortality in the characters, it takes some of the fun out of the game. That
Ooh.
they you know, they will charge in any scenario. Oh well, you know. So
Yeah, I should do that more often with Sarah, considering his hit point pool. But he's taking the least damage most times. Edwin Sue pointed out Pathfinder 2.0, which I have not read, and I've been playing 1.0. Basically made it so that the second time you go down, you start with 1 failed death save. Third time you go down, you start with 2 failed death saves.
that is awesome. I would use that rule.
Yeah, that would. Yeah,
that's a great balance.
And yeah, that stuff, the yo-yoing of characters up and down from death. Yeah, and as we're reading through the comments, our chat's exploding, which is fun.
A character dying when you choose death can be really powerful. It can be.
And it has.
I've DM'd some powerful character deaths. Look, when I did the quarantine game, the Heroes of the Demon Bride, when one of the characters died, I had 11 grown adults crying like school children. When Dark and Queen and Shadowed Rose, when Sarah died, I got threats. When Dandy died, I got threats. But they were powerful happenstance. Although, one of the deaths was because the player had to leave the game.
Mm-hmm.
That couldn't be reconciled. Their life just said, I can no longer play this. The other one was just shitty dice rolls. It was a combat I expected them to roll through.
Yeah.
The first time Dandy went down, and then the second time Dandy's parents killed her. So
that was just a dick move in general, but the player asked for it too.
Yes, so the player asked for the character to be broken. So I broke the character.
And it played out well. And it was a good RP moment. Yeah. As much as you don't want to throw daggers for that one, that one played out well, and it was, I don't say worked out ahead of time with the player, but yeah. But that's player death for the RP sake, and that, when I step back to the overall look, that's cool. I'm good with player deaths. I'm good with player deaths for RP, for reasons.
Character deaths, not player deaths.
Oh yeah. Have you met some of my players? I mean, character deaths. Yes.
I want to go back and respond to Christina, who put that was awesome tension too, and the Revelations storyline. Thank you. I know some people were pissed. I'm okay with it. Bad guys do bad things.
Mm-hmm. And I haven't read that. I haven't listened to that one. I'm not sure I want to. I probably do, but I'll have to go find a corner crying for a bit. But back to my point, I'm okay with RP deaths. Players dying for a reason. I guess where I get kind of hesitant to kill off a player character is bad die roll. When the dice hates you, just bad luck. It just, players don't tend to have fun when that happens. And that's where I kind of like the death saving throw for that aspect of, oh well, shit, the dice just hate you tonight. You're all right, fine, but you're not out of the fight, but you're not out of the game.
And that's where I applaud death saves.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as I've said it before, you have a shitty night, the dice are just against you. Your character drops. You have a chance of not dying. But for the most part, I still think that death saves just need to go.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. At upper levels, it gets silly because once you reach a certain power level, okay, you died. Hold on a second. Let me go find a cleric and about 1,000 or 5,000 gold worth of diamond. And
300 or 500.
Okay, 305. Yeah, we'll have you back up in a little bit. Versus lower levels, that's actually kind of a steep price to pay, and they may not have access to it yet.
Yeah, and that's something that when I created Revelations, the episode Revelations, it wasn't a no-win. It was just a shitty choice versus a shitty choice. There was just shitty choices to be made. But things that I took into account was things like they had a paladin that had lay on hands. They had a cleric that had access to raise the dead. Things of that nature. They were different avenues that they could have gone. Because Soul Cage only lasts for 8 hours unless the magic user uses the soul up and consumes it. So I took into account that they had contingencies, and that's why I was like, okay, at this point, I can use this type of encounter.
Two questions. I'd increase the cost for raising by how powerful the character is. We'll get back to that one. And how much the church likes them. Do they want to bring back a maniac? Not so much. RuneQuest has you pay your character's ransom to the healing church as a courtesy. Yeah, how much the cheese? But I like the first part. And I actually, in the board game, hybrid game I'm just working on right now, I have that mechanic in there. If your character dies, you can come back. But you have to pay a cost based on the level of your character. So the higher level of your character, the higher the resource cost it is to bring them back. Versus starting over with a new character. And I kind of like that mechanic because then it kind of grows with you. It keeps some of the power creep in check.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take our break.
True.
Get our beverages of choice, our snickety snacks, and we'll be back. Hang out, and we'll talk some more of DMCraft. And we're back. Thanks so much for hanging out while we got our beverages of choice and our snickety snacks and handled our business. Today we're talking DMCraft, creating items and mechanics, and we've now gone down a tangent of getting rid of death saves or modifying death saves and shit that we would get rid of in the game, shit we would improve. Lots of tangents, and we thank you for being here with us to cast tangent.
Yes. Yes, our chat has been extra lively while we've been gone because they've gone down the same tangent with what to do about death saves. Edwin Sue, in the case, maybe add an extra stat called Soul, only used to determine how many times you can be raised.
I like that.
Ooh, that's an interesting mechanic.
Make it the 2d6 at character creation, and that's it. That's how many times you can be brought back.
Oh no, 2d6, and then you start bribing the gods. It makes religions and churches much more important. Like, oh, hey, I'm down to like one death save left. I'm gonna go to church now, and here's a pot of money to this god. Could you not like kill me? Yeah,
we have the absolute best audience, bar
yes.
none.
Mm.
Yes. If you are the archpriest, the first priest of a deity, you get extra soul.
Ooh, yeah, that could be fun too. Yes, during break, I poked at 2 questions about his city running RPG and asked him what type of actions could you take as a entity of the city. And he finally responded to me: use your army to secure external resources, use your prestige to attract other cults to your city, treasury to requisition magic items. He's still working on that. He was making lunch.
You make enough for all of us. That's
right. Question. And someone else piped up earlier in our voice chat. I'm the water department. Did you pay your bill? No, you didn't pay your bill. Not only we're not going to disconnect you this week, but this week we're going to reverse the flow. Ooh, that could be fun too. Yeah, it's just the thought of running various factions of the city and playing something kind of interesting. Yes, use your control of resources to coerce other factions. That's actually most of city planning, but that's a different thing.
So you asked me, Raph. I have to ask you, if you could change one thing about 5e, what would it be?
I would get rid of the number crunch, the number compression.
Elaborate, please.
The when they did the stat crunch to bring the numbers back down to smaller numbers to play with, I think it took away some of that epic fantasy feel. You know, now I give you a +3 weapon and you're a god for the first, you know, especially if you get at low level, you're a god for X number of levels till people catch up. You don't see a high AC, so I can max out my AC at what, mid-20s without. There are ways, yes, with multi-classing and other crazy bullshit to get some obscene numbers, but that's for the extreme. I'm going to min-max every little bit of this player that none of us like to play with anyways. But for your average player, as you're talking, you know, ways to avoid your death, increase your hit points, increase your AC. When your AC only gets so high, a +2 really hurts or helps. I think I would increase it, so I would bring that stat push, go back to some of the 3s, 4s, and 5s for weapons and AC. Just because that gives you a better gradient. So I've got a +4 weapon, and I'm at level 14th level. As we've said before, I'm now a regional or world level hero being. I affect things at that level. If I walk across a level 3 guard and he tries to poke me, it should be a bad day for him, unless your DM's being evil. But I think that's what I would do. I would kick back out some of those bonuses and stats to give us a better gradient, so you have much more of a buildup. You know, plus ones, plus twos in your low to mid levels, plus twos, threes, fours into your mid levels. Then you get fours and fives at your high levels. So you have a little more range versus 1, 2, 3. That's it.
Yeah, I think that would be something I'd like to see. I'd like to see the ability to increase armor class, increase hit points. Especially when you get up into the higher levels, because like you said, at the higher levels, you're a world-known hero. You know, you're supposed to be doing epic deeds of badassery, and you know.
Mm-hmm. And to answer your question, he brings up got to be careful bringing more math to the game, though. That is a trade-off. It isn't, though. That's the illusion. What's the difference between a +3 and a +5? The same math calculation is done, you're just using a different number. I think some of what they're going for in the earlier editions, especially in 3.5, was the massive number of different things, different feats, different abilities that could affect the number you rolled. And if you didn't know them all, the calculation got really screwy because you had so many different modifiers. But the actual number doesn't matter per se. So cutting down the number of things that could affect the roll, the number of additional modifiers you throw on it, yes, that's where you got to watch out your math creep. Versus, okay, what's the difference between adding a +2 versus adding a +4? And that's just a simple math problem there. Well, so that's my soapbox on that one. But yeah, I'm waiting for
what
chat.
Else do you guys have?
Yeah,
what
chat.
Else you got?
We enjoy chat. Yeah, what else can we change? What else can we change? I think I'd also bring back more magic items. Make magic items magic again. I don't. What are your feelings on the attunement system here?
I like it.
Okay.
I like the attunement system because back in second ed, you'd have a character that had like 12 different magic items walking around, and just being a fucking god. With this limits, you have to choose what's more important to you, and it keeps things balanced. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the attunement system. That was one of the biggest things that I hurrayed over in 5e. I think there should be 4 slots instead of 3.
I disagree with you entirely, but that's because I like, magic item stacking. I like, dragon hoarding. Ooh, I got all these magic items, making useful. But I see I see your side of the argument. I understand why they did it. Because yeah, that does add to the amount of modifiers you put into a roll, and that gets complex trying to track all that. But I play BattleTech and accountants for robots, so I kind of dig into that stuff. That's what hirelings are for. We are not discussing the leadership feat on this stream. If you don't know what it is, go look it up. Third ed 3.5 leadership. Anyways, 2 questions. Change caster spell levels. Instead of getting X spells per day, have them wager spell levels and make a check to cast a spell.
Can you elaborate on that 2 questions?
Yeah, that would seriously rein in magic users in some ways. You don't automatically cast a spell. You have to make a check to cast it. That could be interesting. Think about that. Yeah, because all right, am I going to waste this spell slot and not have it go off?
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they elaborate on.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you get a spellcraft check to cast something. Easy spells like Magic Missile are nearly guaranteed, but Fireball takes a harder check. That would be interesting. That would definitely be interesting.
Wagering
enough makes the check guaranteed. That reminds me of the Cypher system.
Okay.
So in Cypher, the storyteller never rolls the dice. They set the difficulty. But you have different stats and different abilities that you can burn to lower the difficulty. So if you're statted the right way, you can take an 18 difficulty and bring it down to 0. And so that's what that reminds me of, is being able to say, so I'm going to wager on this, but I'm going to burn X, Y, and Z to get the roll that I want to happen.
And you just got to be careful what rolls you pick.
Edwin SU said that I might consider giving skill training more ranks. Currently, you are proficient or not. Instead, you would get a number of +1 bonuses you can assign to a skill each time your proficiency bonus goes up, with no value being allowed to be higher than your proficiency bonus. So you can dabble in a skill or put 1 point in something with RP reasons. They do have expertise now, which, if I'm not mistaken, doubles your proficiency bonus. But I get what you're saying, where you add, where you train, you burn downtime, you burn gold, you increase your skill, and you get a bonus to it rather than, yeah, I can dig that.
It does harken back to the old 3.5 and Pathfinder version, where that's exactly what you do. You get so many skill points per level. Here you go. Assign them as you will. You can't have You can't have any more skill points on a level than skill than your level. And that system I do like, because it allows you to kind of pick and choose where you put your skill points versus proficiency bonus. They do have a proficiency bonus for your class skills, saying certain classes are better at these skills, but in the end, it's the player's choice where they want to put their skill points. And it makes for some very interesting characters. Some characters spread them all over the place, and they have a wide range of skills they can make decent rolls on. Other characters very much focus on specific skills, and they're really good at those skills, but that's about it.
Ooh, Christina makes a very good point. Very good point. Christina says, I miss clerics having access to the whole spell list, but limited number of spells today. I'm not fond of having to prep divine spells. I just don't get it. Your magic comes from deity, not study. This is another thing that if it was up to me, I would change. The clerics would have X amount of spell slots, but would have access to all their spells.
Oof. This very much feels like the sorcerer versus wizard debate. In theory, the wizard has access to all these spells, but he's got to pre-pick his spells. Sorcerer only has access to a few spells and can cast less, but he can cast any of the spells he knows on the fly. Yeah. For those who are listening at home, we are watching chat just fly by, trying to get caught up because our chat is active today, which is good. Let's see. Back on the skills thing, Edwin Sue. Currently, you're stuck with skills you get at level 1, even if your character starts moving in another direction later on. Yes, that's kind of why I like being able to add skill points to things. Ooh, I like 2 questions. You want to go to your?
Yeah, 2 questions says, I'd made the check for casting your prepped spells easier, but make unprepped spells harder and domain spells guaranteed to go off. That is a hell of a good solution right there.
Yeah, I kind of like that. Oh crap, I need darkness all of a sudden. I didn't prep it for the day. It's a level 2 spell. Here you go. I make a caster check, and if I pass the caster check, it goes off, but I burn a level 2 slot. Oh yeah. Are you? And 2 questions. Thank you. And that's why I like it being a check, because as the DM, you can modify the check as you like. Have you been a good cleric today? Did you finish all your devotions, or did you rush through them? the deity may not be very favorable to you today. Sorry, you can't. The check's a lot harder.
That
Ooh.
would give interaction with deity a lot more role play opportunity if it came into play for casting spells. Lolly G50 says, yeah, I don't have a daily spell sets with my sorcerer, but I also have what feels like a 30-page spell list.
Yeah, wizards, it's actually worse. If the DM has been benevolent and giving you access to spells. I think that's something I would change in 5th is the wizards access to spells somehow. Because they gotta, they can get more spells, but they gotta find them in the world. And that kind of really depends on your DM giving you access, dropping spell books for you to research and giving you the time to do the research. If we had a wizard like that in our Sins of Blood campaign, he'd get nothing done because we haven't had a break yet. We've kind of hit the ground and been running pretty hard. So time to actually do research and study and build has not been there. And I find a lot of campaigns are like that. You're just moving.
If it was me, I'd have it to where the wizard can develop the spells. They can figure out on their own merit how to bring components together to create the desired effect. So when they level up, and let's say they want to take Fireball, they do an Arcana check to see if they can take Fireball.
Ooh. And that's how you feel. All right, now we're digging into the Wayback Machine. I want to say that's kind of how they did it in 2nd edition, I think. Or one of the early, or maybe even 1st edition. I have to dig really back. Is when a wizard leveled up, they'd go through the entire spell list to fill out their spell slots, and every spell they wanted, they'd make a check. And if they passed the check, they got that spell. It filled in one of the spells you could learn for that level. And you went through the list like that, and some spells you didn't learn that level because you failed the check, but you can make another check on a different spell until you filled out your spell list for that level.
I think I may have been 1st ed.
I want to say that was 1st ed. That was a long time ago. But yeah, in some ways, I kind of like that system. Hey, I want Fireball. Oh, I failed. Oh, I don't get Fireball this level, but I still have that spell book slot to fill out. Let's try Web. Web's always fun.
And still give them the option to find stuff out in the wild or go to a magic component store and purchase spells,
Mm-hmm.
But for out in the wild, when you're not having
No.
And that's basically what I'm saying, Edwin, is that they'd be back to like it was in 2nd ed, where wizards are creating their own spells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well.
Because as a wizard character, I may create Tyr's Infernal Blast, and it actually be the mechanics of Fireball.
Ooh.
That's another good idea. 2 questions. Collapse different spells into one that like have Burning Hands, Fireball, and Scorching Ray all one spell, and instead of having them be different, you choose the shape, range, and damage of your spell. That would be pretty cool.
Well, in some ways, that's how it is and how it used to be. You had Burning Hands, Fireball, then Meteorite. They're all kind of different levels of the same spell in some ways. Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning and some of that too. Yeah, no reason for Big V's hand spells to be all different. Are they anymore? I thought 5th ed combined them all into one. They just got a whole bunch of different abilities with the one Big V hand.
I don't remember. No,
I think 5th ed did put Bigsy's hand back into one spell. It just has a list of things it can do. Because one of my players in this last campaign I finished up had it, and they used it for a lot of fun different things, especially mainly holding on to bad guys so they couldn't escape.
So I want to read something.
All right.
This is the promo for the Flux, the game I was talking about earlier. This is what drew me to it. What if the world died yesterday? What if the world died yesterday and was completely reborn? What if the world died yesterday, was completely reborn, and you were the only one who noticed? And what if you could put skills and abilities and even powers from the old world and use them in the new world? The Flux is the first little game from the big book of little games. It is a meta RPG that gives you the tools to flux between RPG worlds and retain your characters. Fantasy to science fiction to pulp adventure to gothic horror back to fantasy. It's all possible with Flux. But be warned, the world may notice you cheating the system, and if it does, it will do its best to get rid of you.
Ooh, that last bit is kind of ominous. It very much feels like the Matrix.
Doesn't it though?
Yeah, like that feel of, hey, you're bouncing between realities here. Wait a second, someone just noticed you. So are you really bouncing realities, or are you in a virtual reality simulation? Which is why
you start off in high fantasy, the world ends, and you wake up in the old west, and you still have some of your magic.
But that's why I said it felt very much like the old Dream Park game was, you had the virtual reality side of the adventures and the real world adventures. So yeah, that could be fun. If we expand the stream, you might have to run that.
Or if an apocalyptic event hits Runas Kesha, that's what we're switching to.
Nope, not going to let it happen. As a player, I'm bound and determined. I've sworn to defend the lands of Kesha from destruction.
Derek in a 10-gallon
hat. He would never fit in any door if you wore one of those.
Rika just wants to see Sarek in some chaps.
Nobody wants to see that.
But you do bring up a good point. I'm trying to get my shift changed at work to mid-shift. And if the mid-shift change happens, I'm going to try to expand and do more streaming through the week. So if I could find people interested to stream, I would be happy to run the game.
Mm-hmm.
2 mules for Sister Nan. The good, the bad, the draft.
You just want to play a Western game is what it is, I think.
No, I would go from fantasy to fucking urban fantasy completely. Like right off the bat.
Although that would be kind of fun seeing some of our characters in alternate universes. Who shot Dreft Viterkin? Oh God. Could you see the Bloodlines or Sins of Blood? Either one of those casts in the Murder She Wrote Mysteries game.
Brindlewood Bay.
Oh.
The good, the bad, the Shariz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oof. We're having way too much fun with that, but I'm trying to think, is there a decent Western-based RPG?
I don't know. Not that I've come across.
Yeah, Deadlands, but that's more a board game, more a war game skirmish or a tactical skirmish game.
There is one. I have to find the name of it.
Let's see. 2 questions comes Apocalypse World, but that's more of a Mad Max style game.
Deadwood or Undeadwood is a RPG system, and it uses playing cards.
Oh, yes. That's an interesting. If we're going to get back to the gaming choices and mechanics for randomization, playing cards, I've seen that pop up versus dice. Malifaux, the skirmish battle game on the tabletop, they use cards. There are no dice. It's all a deck of cards, tarot cards they use. But yeah, being able to draw cards and flip cards and throw cards for your roll for your to hits is rather interesting. Yeah, that could be fun. Hi, I take a swing into my sword. I'm throwing down a 10. I block with a jack.
Yeah. And there's games out there like Blades in the Dark and stuff that you could reskin into Westerns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
reskinning.
Weird Frontiers RPG. Let me write that one down.
Uh-huh. Yep. Back. Alternate West. That could be kind of fun.
Of a sci-fi West or a fantasy West, sort of like Cowboys versus Aliens.
I think one I'd like to see would be Grimm's fairy tale style game. That's run, more some of the old school Monster of the Week baddies.
That would be awesome.
Trying to dig back into that level of psychological horror that isn't so over the top, but not Cthulhian like Lovecraft.
Yeah. I apologize again for the faces and the noise, y'all. I'm just having a bad pain.
Wild Wild West reskin. Wild Wild West was one of those guilty pleasures that you watched, you enjoyed, even though you probably shouldn't have.
It was a great movie. It was underrated as hell. It was a fun movie. The steampunk stuff was great.
Yep.
I'm a big steampunk fan. So the giant spider and shit was just awesome.
Mm-hmm. The bungee cording, the trains were entertaining. But yeah, how would you stat out some of that?
I'm not sure. I'd have to think about it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's part of the problem with game design is you sit down and you start to make those decisions of, cool, I've got this train. What does that mean to the world? What type of stats does a train have versus a person? What type of stats does your person have? So yeah, we're basically reacting to chat at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, keep it going, chat.
Yeah. Let's see. Western steampunk. Ooh, that could be fun. Steam-powered horses.
Think of the old cartoon Lone Star.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's kind of what I was starting to think about. Yeah. Pistols and steam-powered horses. Water would be a very precious resource in that world.
Yeah, it would.
Water and coal. Oh, yeah. Iron Kingdoms. Two Questions brings up the Iron Kingdoms RPG, which I do have on my shelf. It is based off of War Machine and Hordes. And it is very much a steampunk style robots with mages controlling them and various other forces involved. And it's got a very, very RP heavy background there, which is kind of fun. Yeah, they call them the War. Sorry, slow catching up here. The Warjacks. That's what they were for Iron Kingdom's Warjacks. They're giant steam-powered robots that are controlled by the casters in the back. As a tabletop game, it was very much a game of lynch the caster, because you killed the caster, the robots kind of fell apart, and that team fell apart. But it was fun. It was a very interesting concept. And the RPG was rather well written because it had a very flavorful world to play in.
So it doesn't look like you can order the role-playing game anymore.
Which one? Iron Kingdoms?
Iron Kingdoms. They have one on pre-order that's for 5e setting.
Ooh, interesting. They converted to 5e.
Yeah. Because if I had the $85, I'd grab that and the Monster Nomicon.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. All right, 2 questions. He once ran a game of Iron Kingdoms with 9 players and nobody felt left out.
That's awesome.
That's really good. I struggle with large parties at that, trying to keep everyone at the table engaged. You get much from me. If you get much over 4, 5 people, it gets really hard to keep people focused on what's going on. As you
I
jump
love
from
the recommendations because, like I said, if I get my schedule changed, I want to open up more streams.
Mm-hmm.
This gives me different options to look into on which way I'd want to go, and then finding people to play in them.
Mm-hmm. What? Players? That's the perennial DM's problem. I have a game I want to run. Do I have any players? They're all working. Damn it. Yep. Okay. He ran a one-shot in Iron Kingdoms, was a single assault on a gang hideout, and the resolution system for that game is super fast.
Nice.
Yes. And I guess that comes down to back to a design philosophy. Is it robust? Good. Generally robust and quick generally don't work together. That's what I'm seeing with some of the newer games is they're very slim down rule sets. They work quickly, but they don't cover all the screwball situations players throw at you. Because players always follow the rules and don't ever think outside the box.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. Later, Ustad. Have a good one. I think we're going to go ahead and call this one. I think we've had a lot of good conversation. We're about done. I don't want to drag it out and get into boringness. So, thank you so much for tuning in. Go ahead and tell them who you are and where they can find you, Raph.
All right, greetings, gamers. I've been Raph the Mad, one of your co-hosts for this wandering weirdness of a discussion. And I can be found at BLK Dragon 13,000 at dice.camp on Mastodon.
And I'm Tier the DM. I am the world's okayest DM. I have the t-shirt to prove it. May wear it on stream tomorrow night. You can find me on Twitter at tier_the_DM. Remember, guys, that things get difficult and times get hard, but you're not alone. Remember that love and inclusion are the torches that light a path to a better tomorrow. Come join us and be torchbearers. And remember, until next time, if you have a question, if you think of something you'd like for us to discuss, hit us up on questions@willofthedice.com. It's an email. Send it to us. We will address them on air. And as always, if someone doesn't know, don't cast aspersions. Cast guidance. Love you guys.